Last week, we talked about the unending conflict in the Sahel region of Africa. This week, we continue that conversation, focusing now on how this conflict has affected insecurity in northwest Nigeria. Carrying on that conversation from last week are Dr. Abdulrahman Abu Hamisu, a security, governance, and counter-terrorism expert who has worked and researched in the Northeast and Lake Chad for the last 6 years. Our second guest, also joining us via Zoom, is Dr. Diyeli Aigbe, a security expert and criminal psychopathy and forensic psychology. Guys, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, I'm going to start immediately. Dr. Abdulrahman, let's start with you. The issue in the Northwest, escalating violence, banditry, blowing up the train tracks, escalating violence in the Northwest due to influx of fighters from the Sahel region and ISWAP and all of that. Where do we begin to sort this issue now?
Okay, last week I was trying to give a vivid background that add a mix to the security challenge we're having. Let me do that quickly.
All right.
I spoke about the shrinkage of Lake Chad, which led to shrinkage of available land as well as grazing resource. The other thing again is the neo-colonial impact of France policy in all its former colonies.
Yes.
If you watch all the colonies that were colonized by France, you realize that they are being ruled by dictators. And then that is why you have coup and counter-coup in those territories. You add that mix to geopolitical concentration and politics that is destroying one, Yemen, two, the removal of Gaddafi and the arms that were pumped into that region. Don't forget the South Sudan liberation struggle. All of these pumped arms, sophisticated arms into these very particular regions.
Yes.
And then the mix of all of this, the migration I talked about last week as a result of the receding and shrinking Lake Chad.
Lake Chad, yes.
With access to wheat corn led to resource conflict, cattle rustling, banditry. So you have that corridor where arms are flowing into Nigeria, through the northeast as well as the northwest, because of the interconnectivity that exists between the two regions. So,
where do we begin?
If we want to address these very particular challenges, we have to start from the source. One is channeling energy to ensuring effective management of Lake Chad water resources, so that there will be access to more grazing lands. There should be access to more farmlands, and then grazing routes that were recognized by law should be re-established so that other farmers' conflict can be stopped. The second thing that they needed to do is a commitment to silencing the gun in Africa in line with Vision, is it 2060? That can be done by ECOWAS working together with the Chad Basin Commission to really police the porous borders, including our customs and immigration. It is disheartening to note that we have the immigration service, we have customs services, we have the police, we have the civil defense. Civil defense is responsible for security at the local community levels.
Okay, Dr. Hamisu, can you round it up?
Being smuggled into this country. So we used to police these very particular entry points that are used for arms smuggling, contraband that are aiding the bandit. As well as cattle rustling.
All right, thank you. I get that. I'm going to ask you a question very quickly. You talked about some of the things that we can do, being very proactive. Number one, we need to sort out the grazing route issues. Number two, we need to tackle the arms issues. But we didn't talk about what do we do about the situation immediately. And we have very, very, very active and very hardened fighters in these areas. What can be done in that areas also? But I'm going to ask, please hold on that. I'm going to ask Dr. Segun, what's your take on this same issue?
Yes, thank you very much for this privilege over here. My own take is that the government should involve the community, the community people into it, because you don't always use the military approach alone to solve the problem. You can see the military approach has not been very, very effective, even though there are military warfare, military supports and type of funding. But you look at the community aspect of it, involving the religious actors, the Islamic clergies,
yes,
to change the narratives towards Islamization of radicalizations of this insurgency.
Okay.
So it's very critical. But most of the communities or rural sectors are really affected with this crisis, and they should get involved into it, and it will really help. It will be very effective. And sometimes you always have to use the online approach in solving terrorism. Sometimes you have what you call the velvet glove, where you adopt that strategy by talking to the insurgents. Because their grievances, they have this perception that the government has been not very effective in solving their problems, so they have to now take towards true arms. So the government should be able to talk to them. And because they are all, some of these who have this Northeast issue, most of them are Nigerians, so they should be able to form that synergy to talk to them, and not just using the military approach alone. It will not really very effective.
All right, Dr.
It will strain our law enforcement. You can see the battle fatigue in our military.
Yeah, we can get that.
Military psychology has already affected them. So government should need to look at the religious sectors, the youth leaders, the movement to come together and form a coalition to be able to address the issue.
All right, Dr. Segun, I'm going to get back. In fact, let me just ask you that before I go back to Dr. Abdulrahman so that we can sort this out. The mental state of these people, is it possible? Are we going to be able to de-radicalize these people and get them going back to be able to function in a normal society? Will they be able to regain confidence in waiting for due process as opposed to picking up the gun and getting quick solutions the way they want it? Will we be able to do this from your knowledge?
Yes, we're going to have. We have the trained psychologists that can do it. Cognitively, you have to change their mindset, the perception, and change the narratives to them. What you call in psychology, what motivational interviewing. You have to check. You have to cognitively change their mindset because they're being indoctrinated or brainwashed to think that jihadists is the only way they can do to put the attention of the government. So, and the government will be able to. This is a social factor thing. And the government should be able to keen to it, and the vulnerability of the people too. So it will really help solve that problem cognitively and reduce the insurgency rate.
Dr. Abdulrahman, you heard Dr. Segun. Is it that easy to be able to de-radicalize these people who have been radicalized and who have taken up arms? They've tasted of violence, they've tasted of the booty of war. Is it that easy to get these people back? Remember, we're talking about a long-term, a short and medium-term, and a short-term issue, so that the situation is quickly resolved, especially for communities that are very hard hit.
Okay, yeah. Government is currently doing that in Gombe State, where repentant low-key Boko Haram members who decided to drop the guns and embrace peace are currently being radicalized. Don't forget the fact that last month, a lot of members of the Boko Haram group decided to defect and surrender to government in order to benefit from the amnesty program, which is more or less like the de-radicalization program that you're talking about. But importantly, the war against terrorism is psychological in the final analysis. Don't forget the fact that one of the grievances that led them to pick up arms against the Nigerian state was corruption. And this corruption is still much around with us, except for the little changes that were witnessed. You remember the arms gate. You remember there are a lot of researchers that have shown that the insurgency was being used to demand for more funding that ended up in private pockets. Yes. And this is a confirmation to the extremists that nothing has changed. So if you want to
all right, Dr. Abdulrahman, please allow me. Sorry, Dr. Abdulrahman, you mentioned something. You said this is a confirmation to the insurgents that nothing have changed, but a lot has been done here. Is that a first statement to make at this point in time with all the efforts the government is putting in?
So I underscore something. I said, though we are beginning to see changes, right? But it's a psychological warfare. By time, for instance, what is due to IDPs are not being given to them, and the IDPs are protesting. Who are they going to support? Is it government or the insurgents that are saying that we're the alternative? Until these things are done properly, where we have a lot of reforms, governance reforms, that ensure that people get fair share from the people, because the people are between the government and these guys. So whoever convince them is the person they are going to go with. So if, for instance, Mohammed Yusuf said our problem is corruption and abuse of public office, right? And there were public servants that are depriving the IDPs. The question will be, who would the IDPs support? Who would they say is truthful? Is it government or is the insurgent that are saying that, okay, this is... So that is why I said the word is psychological. So we need reforms that give back to people what they deserve. So that in the long run, there will be no justification for them to support the radical group.
All right, so you're saying...
It's been done by government.
You're saying that we need to follow this thing in two-pronged approach. One, we need to deliver the dividends of government everywhere across the country. It has to be seen, not just, it has to be seen to be done. That's number one. While on the other hand, we engage these people and try to de-radicalize them. The second question I'm going to ask you is that there has been some issues, some protests. Some people believe that some of these repentant terrorists are getting more preferential treatments than the citizens who never joined violence at all. So how are you going to be able to balance this? Nigeria is a very interesting country. You try to solve this problem, another one comes overside. So how are we going to, is government going to be able to approach this matter without creating a new set of problem for itself?
That is exactly the point I'm making. The essence of the treatment that is being given to the repentant Boko Haram members is to convey to those that are in the bush that you can drop your arms and you benefit from this particular program as promised by government in order to achieve peace. On the other hand, again, it's not as if government has not budgeted a certain amount for the victims. The problem has always been that these very particular budgeted amounts are not getting to the right persons that deserve to get them. And that was why in the past, you see IDPs protesting, but people that do not know will feel that IDPs are ungrateful. Why should they be protesting against government that is... So issues around diversion of funds are rigged. There are researches, recent researches. One of it is the compromised state and how corruption is fueling insecurity in Nigeria. Get that very particular research. You will see how insecurity is being used to justify huge humongous spendings that are not going to the right places to make the right impact. For instance, you remove almost 2.1 billion US dollars for arms procurement. The arms were never procured. So how do you ask the military to fight people that have A-grade weapons that are coming from Libya, that are coming from Yemen, that are coming from South Sudan? So you could see that there is asymmetry in terms of weaponry. That is why at a point in time, the governor of Borno set up to say that the Boko Haram guys were better mobilized, better armed and strong. That is just it. So you remove 2.1 billion and money did not get to procurement of arms. So are the troops going to fight with their bare hands?
Solutions now.
It is psychological and corruption must have to be
We get that. Doctor, so moving on to solutions now, because we're really running out of time. What do we do now in such a way, as in what do we do immediately? We need some very quick short-term solutions to, to calm down the situation. If not, things are going to escalate. More people are going to lose confidence in the government. More people are going to lose confidence in civilization, a civilized way of living. So what are the immediate steps that can be done to ensure that, one, these issues of corruptions can be sorted so the things budgeted for the IDPs can get to them?
One of the immediate things that's supposed to be done is what the current Borno state government is doing.
Okay.
It goes out to supervise distribution of food as well as quantities they need. For instance, the NEDC is building houses. I think they've launched 200 mass housing that has been completed. They are launching 500. Now, these are tangibles that people want to see. You want to tell people, don't resettle them in ramshackle buildings. Bring them to... So everybody should emulate that. There is a movement now towards open governance initiative as well as peer.
That's very important.
These are all anti-corruption and government reforms that are supposed to deliver impact to the people. When you deliver impact to the people, there will be no incentive to support the insurgent by donating one's kids to act as suicide bombers or to become logistics suppliers so that you'll be paid. You will remember they are arresting people.
Yes, many of them have been arrested right now.
As well as other things.
That's true. Doctor, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. You've given us quite a bit of insight, been on the ground there, been in these areas, been observed, been researched these issues. It's good to hear you. Thank you very much for being on the show. We also like to thank Dr. Aigbe. Good. We also like to thank Dr. Aigbe, who, you know, unfortunately he had to go off due to network issues. We look forward to having you again on the show as we talk about this issue some other time.